Welcome to Mining Scripture. My name is Rick, and I do biblical research to help others understand the Bible's teaching. My full study goes into greater depth and can be downloaded from the link in this episode's description. I've used AI to shape this study into an engaging discussion that also preserves the original intent.
Have you ever had a moment where something that always seemed incredibly complicated suddenly became perfectly clear?
Oh, I love when that happens. It's like a light bulb going off.
Right. Well, welcome. We are just so glad you were joining us for today's deep dive. We have a really fascinating mission today.
We do. We are looking at a document that explores a big idea called righteousness by faith.
Yeah, and more importantly, we are looking at what happens after a person makes the choice to follow God.
Exactly. Because, when people talk about these topics, it is so easy to get lost in huge words and complicated rules.
Oh, totally. It can sound like a dusty old term from a history book.
Right. But when you look closely at what the Bible actually says, the truth is very simple. It is a story full of hope. It is all about friendship, the choices we make every single day, and how a person changes from the inside out.
Exactly. So our goal today is to take all these huge ideas and break them down into simple, clear pictures.
I love that approach.
Yeah, we want to understand exactly how this works in real, everyday life. And to kick us off, we really need to start with that main phrase, righteousness by faith.
Right. It's a big phrase.
It really is. So let's start with a picture. How would you define righteousness by faith using a picture that is crystal clear?
Well, let's imagine your heart is like a backpack that you have to wear everywhere you go.
Okay, I can picture a backpack.
And right now, that backpack is filled with heavy, muddy rocks.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah, it's bad. Every mistake you have ever made, every bad choice, every time you were mean to someone, or maybe every time you took something that wasn't yours.
Or like every time you didn't tell the truth.
Exactly. Each of those choices is a dirty, heavy rock that goes right into your backpack.
Man, walking around with that backpack all day would be completely exhausting.
It really would be.
It would slow you down. It would make your shoulders ache. You wouldn't be able to run or play freely because that heavy weight is always, pulling you backward.
And the mud is leaking out, making
Yeah.
a mess everywhere you go.
Yeah, you would just feel tired and dirty all the time.
Right. It is a terrible feeling. Now, righteousness by faith is what happens when Jesus comes along.
Okay.
He sees you struggling with that terrible, heavy backpack. And instead of just telling you to try harder to carry it.
Which wouldn't really help anyway.
Exactly. Instead of that, he takes it completely away. He takes out every single heavy, muddy rock, and he gives you a brand new, perfectly clean backpack for free.
Wait, for free?
Completely for free. You didn't have to do any hard work to earn it. You didn't have to buy it.
Wow.
You just trusted him completely as your best friend, and he gave it to you. That is what that big phrase means, a brand new, clean heart given as a free gift.
That is a wonderful picture. Just imagining taking off that heavy weight brings a feeling of total relief.
It really does.
But it brings up a really important question, and honestly, that question is our roadmap for today's deep dive.
Okay, what is it?
Once we get that brand new, clean backpack, how do we keep it clean?
Yeah, that is the big question.
Because what happens when we feel a sudden tug to go back to the mud and make bad choices again?
Which definitely happens.
Right? And how does the Bible explain that battle that happens inside our own minds when we want to do good, but we also feel pulled to do wrong?
Well, that roadmap is exactly what we need to follow today. Because getting the clean backpack is really just the beginning of the story.
Right.
The real journey is how we walk forward from that exact moment.
So let's dive into the first secret to keeping that backpack clean. The document we are studying calls it abiding.
Abiding. Sounds like a fancy word.
It does sound formal. To explain this, I am going to read our first passage. This is John chapter 15, verses 6 through 7, and verse 10.
Perfect.
It says, "If anyone does not abide in me, he is cast out as a branch and is withered, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire, and it shall be done for you. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love."
So, like we said, the word abide sounds big, but it really just means staying connected.
Staying connected. Okay.
Yeah, it means staying close and never letting go. In this text, Jesus uses a brilliant picture of a tree or a vine.
Right, like a branch growing out of the main plant.
Exactly. Think about a branch on a big, strong vine. As long as the branch stays firmly connected to the main trunk, it receives all the water and the nutrients it needs.
It grows green leaves.
Right. It produces fruit. It is alive because the life of the tree is flowing right into it. But the second that branch snaps off the tree, what happens?
Well, it dries up, the leaves turn brown, and they just crumble.
Exactly. It loses all its life. The branch doesn't have any water of its own, right? It only has water when it is connected to the trunk.
That makes a lot of sense.
And we can think about this with something we use every single day. Think about a tablet or a phone.
Oh, good example.
When you are using it, the battery is slowly draining. If you do not keep it plugged into the charger, the screen gets dim, the power drops, and eventually...
The battery dies completely. The screen just goes black.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. God's love is the electricity. Jesus is the power source.
And we are the tablet.
Yes, we are the tablet. And keeping God's commandments, which simply means doing the good things he asks us to do, is how we make sure the cord stays plugged into the wall.
So doing what God asks isn't how we earn the tablet in the first place.
Nope, not at all. It is just how we keep the tablet turned on and full of life. We are simply staying connected to his love.
I see. The power flows from him through the cord and straight into our hearts.
Exactly.
But, I want to explore something here that might seem a little confusing at first. Let's look at another text from the document. This is John chapter 8, verses 31 and 32.
Okay, let's hear it.
It says, "Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed him, 'If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.'"
Okay, that is a great text.
But I want to look closely at the word if. Jesus is talking to people who already believed in him, right?
Yes, he is.
So why does he say, if you abide? Doesn't believing once mean you are plugged in forever? Like if I plug the tablet into the wall, doesn't it just stay charged forever?
Oh, that is a really crucial point to understand. Many people think that once you ask Jesus to be your friend, it is like a magic spell that locks you into place, and you never have to think about it again.
Yeah, that's definitely a common thought.
But true faith isn't a magic trick. It is a friendship. Think about a really good friend you have. You don't just agree to be friends one time and then never speak to them again, right?
Right. That wouldn't be much of a friendship. You have to spend time together. You have to talk to each other, listen to each other, and, share things. If you stop talking to them and start ignoring them, you aren't really friends anymore.
Exactly. Friendship is an active choice you make every single day.
So Jesus uses the word if because he leaves the choice up to us every day.
Yes, we are not robots programmed to love him. We get to choose if we want to stay plugged into the power source.
Wow, okay.
And the sad part of that story in the book of John proves that this choice is very real.
What happens?
Well, later in that exact same story, in verse 37, those same people who started out believing in him actually chose to unplug themselves.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they let their batteries die completely. They got so disconnected that they stopped listening to his words. They even planned to hurt Jesus because his word no longer had any place in their hearts.
That is a really stark warning. They started with the clean backpack. They started out plugged in, but they made the actual choice to walk away.
Exactly.
And the document lists several other places in the Bible that talk about this choice. We have a real choice to either stay connected or to disconnect. Let's look at some of the references listed here.
Okay.
1 John chapter 2, verse 24 says, "Therefore let that abide in you which you heard from the beginning."
So we have to actively keep the good things we learned inside our minds.
Right. We can't just forget them. And then there is 2 John chapter 1, verse 9, which says, "Whoever goes too far and does not abide in the doctrine of Christ does not have God."
It is a picture of walking too far away from the power source until the cord unplugs.
That is exactly what it sounds like. We also see Colossians chapter 1, verses 22 through 23.
What does that one say?
This one says, "He has reconciled you," which just means he made you friends again to present you holy and blameless, if indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast.
There is that word if again. We have to continue. We have to stay grounded.
Yep, and 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1 warns that in the latter times, some will depart from the faith.
Now think about that. You cannot depart from a room unless you are actually inside that room to begin with.
That's a great point.
It shows people choosing to leave the friendship.
Finally, there is 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 20 through 21. It talks about people who escaped the muddy pollution of the world through knowing Jesus, but then they let themselves get tangled up in the mud all over again.
Right. And the text says their end is actually worse than their beginning.
Which is so sad. But all of these texts point to the same truth. Staying connected is an active daily choice.
And honestly, it is a beautiful choice because it means God respects us enough to let us choose him. He doesn't force us.
Right. He wants a real friendship.
Exactly. We choose to wake up and plug into the charger every morning.
Okay, that makes total sense. But let's look at real life for a second. Staying plugged in sounds really simple when we just talk about it, like just plug the cord in.
Yeah, if only it were that easy.
Right. We all know from our own lives that it doesn't always feel that simple. There is often this terrible tug-of-war happening inside us.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes we really want to do the right thing, but we also feel a really strong pull to do something we know is wrong.
That struggle is very real. And that actually leads us perfectly into one of the most famous dilemmas written in the Bible.
Where is that?
It is found in the book of Romans, and it describes that exact tug-of-war feeling perfectly.
Let's read that together. We are looking at Romans chapter 7, verses 14 through 16.
Okay.
The writer here is Paul, and he is being incredibly honest about his own internal struggles.
Which is so refreshing, honestly.
It really is. He says, "For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. For what I am doing, I do not understand. For what I will to do, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do.
Yeah.
If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it is good."
Basically, Paul is saying, I keep doing the very things I hate doing. Why do I keep messing up when I know the right choice is?
It is a feeling everyone can relate to, and the source document gives us a brilliant and very helpful picture of what Paul is describing here.
Okay, what is the picture?
Well, imagine a person is actually two people tied tightly together, side by side, kind of like when you tie your legs together for a three-legged race.
Okay, I can definitely picture a three-legged race. So who are the two people tied together in this picture?
Well, one person is a kind, wonderful woman. She loves good rules. She wants to be helpful. She wants to be kind to animals. She wants to share everything she has, and she always wants to do the right thing.
She sounds great.
She is. But she is tied tightly to an old, grumpy man. Yeah. And this grumpy man is what the text calls the carnal or selfish nature. This old man only wants to break the rules.
Let me guess. He wants to stomp in the mud.
Exactly. He wants to snatch things away. He wants to stomp in the mud. He is angry, and he just wants everything for himself.
That sounds incredibly frustrating. They're trying to walk in the same direction, but the kind woman wants to walk toward the sunshine and the flowers, while the grumpy old man keeps pulling her toward a giant mud puddle.
That is exactly it. And based on this struggle, the document breaks down the human mind into three different types. Understanding these three minds helps explain exactly what is happening in that tug-of-war.
Okay, let's break those down. What is the first type of mind?
The first is the unconverted mind. This is someone who actually likes making bad choices.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for them, the grumpy old man is the one in charge, and they are totally happy about that. They think good rules are annoying or unfair.
So they actually love the muddy rocks in their backpack, and they have no desire to take them out.
Exactly. That makes sense, right? They aren't fighting the old man. They are cooperating with him. They aren't even trying to walk toward the sunshine.
Right, they're just heading straight for the mud.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the second type of mind?
The second is the converted mind. This is the exact person Paul was describing in Romans.
The one who hates making bad choices.
Yes. To this mind, the rules are good. They really want to do what is right. But because they are still tied to that grumpy old man, they are constantly in a wrestling match.
So sometimes the grumpy old man yanks the rope hard, he takes over, and they make a bad choice anyway.
Right. They fall right into the mud, and they feel terrible about it. They hate the mud.
That is the classic tug-of-war.
Yeah.
That is the frustrating three-legged race where you keep tripping.
Yes, exactly. So what is the third type of mind? Is there a way to actually untie the rope and get away from the grumpy old man?
Yes, there is. The third is called the sanctified mind. Now, sanctified simply means someone who has grown so close to God, someone who keeps their tablet plugged into the charger so consistently that they not only hate bad choices, but they actually stop making them.
Wow.
The rope gets cut. The grumpy old man loses his strength completely.
That is a really powerful picture. But, I want to ask a question about this grumpy old man.
Sure, good.
In Romans chapter 10, verses 17 through 20, Paul says something that almost sounds like an excuse.
An excuse. How so?
Let me read it. He says, "But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me." And then he says it again in verse 20. "Now if I do what I will not to do, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me."
Okay, I see what you're getting at.
Right. So I have to ask, if the sin inside me, that grumpy old man, is the one pulling the rope and causing the bad choice, does that mean it is not my fault? Can I just point at the old man and say, "Don't blame me, it was him, he pulled the rope"?
That is a very clever thought, but the text is very clear about this.
No.
No, This does not take away our responsibility. We cannot just blame the grumpy old man and say it wasn't our fault.
No, why not? If the old man is pulling so incredibly hard, why am I still responsible?
Let's use a different picture to explain. Imagine you are driving a car and you are holding the steering wheel,
Okay, I'm driving.
and the grumpy old man is sitting right next to you in the passenger seat. As you are driving, he starts shouting, "Turn into the mud puddle. Steer into the mud."
That sounds super annoying.
Right, and you might even feel his hands reaching over, trying to grab the wheel. But here is the actual truth.
Yeah.
You are the driver.
I'm in the driver's seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you let go of the wheel, or if you agree with him and steer the car into the mud, it was still your choice. You chose to listen to him. You chose to let him win instead of choosing to stay plugged into Jesus.
I see. The feeling of him pulling the wheel is very real, but I am still the one driving.
We have to choose who we listen to.
And Paul talks about this constant fight for the steering wheel. In Romans chapter 7, verses 21 through 25, he describes these two laws fighting inside him.
Right.
The law of his mind wanting to do good, and the law of sin in his body trying to take him captive. He is so frustrated that he actually cries out, "Oh, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death?"
It sounds painful and exhausting, honestly.
It really does. Hearing all this, being tied to that grumpy old man sounds like a terrible way to live. Fighting him for the steering wheel every single day sounds like you would eventually just give up from being so tired.
Well, it would be exhausting if that is where the story ended, but it isn't. The very next chapter in the book of Romans gives us the ultimate solution.
Oh, good.
It gives us a superhero.
We definitely need a superhero for this. Let's look at Romans chapter 8. I am going to read Romans chapter 8, verses 1 through 4.
Let's hear the good news.
It says, "There is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free from the law of sin and death. For what the law could not do in that it was weak through the flesh, God did by sending his own Son, that the righteous requirement of the law might be fulfilled in us, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit."
Okay, let's break down this wonderful promise. First, we see the word condemnation.
Condemnation, that's a big legal word.
It is. When a judge condemns someone, it means they are in trouble. They are guilty. So this verse means that if you are walking with Jesus, you are not in trouble.
Wow.
The muddy rocks are gone, and the judge says you are completely free. And second, we meet the superhero, the law of the Spirit.
So tell us how this superhero works.
The law of the Spirit is like a mighty superhero who steps in and completely defeats the villain.
The villain being the grumpy old man.
Exactly. The villain is the law of sin and death. That grumpy old selfish nature trying to grab the steering wheel. When you invite the Spirit into your life, the superhero actually defeats the old man completely.
So he cuts the rope in that three-legged race.
Yes. He takes the old man out of the passenger seat. Now, the good part of you can run free and fast in the sunshine without being pulled backward.
That is a wonderful rescue. But, you know, there was a phrase in that text that caught my attention.
Which one?
It said that the righteous requirement of the law might be fulfilled in us. The document asks a very direct question here. What exactly is the requirement of the law?
It is a big question, and the answer is very simple, but it might sound a little scary at first. The requirement of the law is perfect living.
Wait, perfect living, never making a single mistake?
Yep.
How is anyone supposed to do that?
Well, on our own, we can't. But remember the superhero. Jesus lived perfectly when he was on this earth. He never once let the grumpy old man grab the steering wheel. He never steered into the mud.
Oh.
Because he lived perfectly, he can actually share his perfect score with us. He gives us his Spirit to live inside us so that his perfect living becomes our perfect living.
Oh, that makes sense. Let's look at how this changes the way we think. Romans chapter 8, verses 5 through 10 goes deeper into the mind. It contrasts the two mindsets.
Right.
It says that those who live according to the flesh, the selfish way, set their minds on selfish things. But those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. It even says that to be carnally minded, which means selfishly minded, is death. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace.
This is all about what we let our brains focus on. A selfish mind is actually an enemy to God. It doesn't want to follow God's good rules, and in fact, it cannot obey him. It only leads to a dead end.
That's true.
But a spiritual mind, a mind that keeps the tablet plugged into the charger, brings life and calmness. It brings total peace.
And this ties right into another really powerful verse from the document, 1 John chapter 3, verse 9. It makes a very strong statement.
What does it say?
It says, "Whoever has been born of God does not sin." That is the exact opposite of the selfish mind. It is saying that when you are fully plugged in, when the superhero is fully in charge of the car, you don't do those bad things anymore.
Yes, you receive a brand new nature.
Mm.
The old, grumpy man is gone.
But this brings up a very important question. It is a question I think every single person wonders about at some point.
Okay.
The text asks this directly. Can someone who is spiritually minded and loves God still feel the tug to do something wrong?
This might be the most helpful question we answer today, because everyone feels that tug. To understand the answer, we have to understand the clear difference between two things, temptation and sin.
Okay, let's read James chapter 1, verses 14 and 15 to help us understand.
Go ahead.
It says, "But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death."
Let's look at a situation that happens to people all the time to explain this. Think about walking down the aisle in a store.
Okay, I'm in a store.
You have a clean heart. You have your clean backpack. Suddenly you look on the shelf and you see something you really, really want.
A really cool toy or something.
Exactly. It doesn't belong to you. You didn't pay for it. But your eyes widen. Your heart beats a little faster. And you think to yourself, I want to put that in my pocket and take it home.
It is a feeling of being pulled towards something.
Yes. That feeling, that sudden strong pull, that thought of, I want, that is called temptation. You are being drawn away by your own desire for the thing on the shelf.
Now, here's the big question. When a person feels that pull, are they in trouble? Did a muddy rock just fall into their clean backpack just because they wanted the item?
This is what I want to make absolutely clear. No. At this point, you are not in trouble at all.
Really?
You are still perfectly clean and right with God. Feeling the tug, feeling the desire, wanting the item on the shelf that is not a sin does not make you dirty.
That is a huge relief. Just feeling the pull toward the mud puddle doesn't mean you failed.
Not at all. But here's where the line is crossed. Let's go back to the store aisle. You feel the tug. You really want the item.
Right.
If you say to yourself, no, that's not mine, and you turn around and walk away, you win. The temptation goes away, and you are still perfectly clean.
Okay.
But if you take that desire, agree with it in your head, reach your hand out, and actually put the item in your pocket, that is when the bad choice is born.
So it is the action that changes everything.
Yes, taking the action, agreeing with the bad desire, and actually doing it, that is sin. As the text from GM says, when desire is fully grown, when it turns into an action, it brings death. Once you make the action, that is when a muddy rock goes plop into your backpack.
That creates a very clear line. It is like standing at the edge of a mud puddle. You can stand at the edge, you can look at the mud, you can even feel a strong urge to jump in.
Exactly.
But if you turn around and walk away, your shoes are still completely clean.
Yes. Temptation is just standing at the edge of the puddle, feeling the urge to jump. Sin is when you actually jump.
This brings up the next logical question, though. What happens if we do jump in?
Yeah, that happens.
What happens if we cross that line, take the item from the store, and put it in our pocket after we already know God and after we already got our clean backpack? Is it possible to make a bad choice after we believe?
It is a sad thought, but yes, it is possible. The document addresses this directly. Let's look at what the Bible says about a person who's been washed clean, but then decides to roll in the mud again.
I am going to read Galatians chapter 2, verses 17 and 18. It says, "But if, while we seek to be justified by Christ, we ourselves also are found sinners, is Christ, therefore, a minister of sin? Certainly not. For if I build again those things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor."
That phrase right there is the key. If I build again those things which I had destroyed.
What does that mean exactly?
When Jesus gave you the clean backpack, he destroyed the old muddy life. Think of it like a tower made of dirty, broken blocks. Jesus knocked that tower down.
Okay, the tower is gone.
But we have free will. We can choose to start picking up those dirty blocks again. We can choose to rebuild the bad habits we used to have.
And the document makes it very clear that this really happens. It lists several other Bible texts that show people walking away or falling back into bad choices.
Yeah. Which ones does it mention?
I will read the list of references exactly as they are written in the study. Hebrews chapter 6, verses 4 through 6, 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 20 through 21, Galatians chapter 5, verse 4, Revelation chapter 3, verse 5, and Ezekiel chapter 18, verse 24.
That's a lot of references.
Let's talk about these. Hebrews talks about people falling away. Galatians talks about falling from grace. Revelation even talks about the danger of a name being removed from the book of life. All of these point to the reality that we can still choose to mess up.
It is a serious warning. It reminds us that we are not locked in a cage where we are forced to be good forever. We have to keep choosing to stay plugged in.
But I want to ask you, what does this do to our feeling of being safe with God? If I can still mess up, if I can still drop a muddy rock in my bag, am I always in danger? Oh, I see.
Like, should I be terrified every second of the day that I am going to accidentally lose my friendship with God?
I want to reassure you completely, you are completely safe. Let's go back to the tablet and the charger.
Okay.
If you accidentally bump the cord and it unplugs for a second, the tablet doesn't instantly explode.
That's true.
You just plug it right back in. You are safe as long as you stay close to the vine. You do not lose your friendship with God by accident. You don't trip, fall, make a mistake, and suddenly God throws you away.
That is very comforting. It is not like walking through a minefield where one wrong step destroys everything. God is patient.
He is incredibly patient. However, the document makes a beautiful, bold claim that we need to focus on.
What's that?
While God will always forgive us if we return to Him, making bad choices is completely unnecessary. We don't have to keep messing up. We don't have to keep falling into the mud. I really love that turn in the study because it brings us to the final, most hopeful part of our deep dive. The beautiful promise of a truly clean life. We are not just meant to be forgiven over and over while we stay stuck in the mud.
No, we aren't.
We are meant to walk out of the mud and stay in the sunshine. Let's read 1 John chapter 2, verse 1. The writer says, "My little children, these things I write to you so that you may not sin. And if anyone sins, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous."
There are two incredible parts to this verse. First, we see the true goal, so that you may not sin. God's dream for us is that we stop making bad choices completely. He wants us to be free from the mud.
And the second part?
The second part is the safety net. And if anyone sins, we have an advocate.
Now, what exactly is an advocate?
An advocate is like having an amazing, tough, incredibly smart older brother who always has your back.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Imagine you made a big mistake, and you were standing in a room, feeling guilty and scared about getting in trouble. Suddenly, your older brother walks in, stands right next to you, puts his hand on your shoulder, and says, "I am with him. I am going to stand up for him. I am going to help fix this mistake, and I am going to help him get back on track."
Oh, wow.
That is what Jesus does for us. He is our advocate.
It would be amazing to have an older brother like that. Someone who defends you even when you messed up, simply because he loves you. God's goal is for us to live completely clean lives, but he has a backup plan of love if we trip and fall on the sidewalk.
Yes. But how do we reach that goal of not falling in the first place? How do we stop the bad choices before they even happen? Trying really hard isn't enough. We need something much stronger than our own human effort.
We need God's superpower.
Exactly.
And that is described beautifully in 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. I will read it. "As his divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life and godliness, by which have been given to us exceedingly great and precious promises, that through these you may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust."
Did you catch that amazing phrase? Partakers of the divine nature. This might be the best news in the entire study.
It sounds huge.
It is. God doesn't just tell us to be good and leave us alone to figure it out. He actually shares his own divine nature with us.
Like he shares his superpower.
Exactly. He pours his own goodness, his own strength, and his own love directly into our hearts. And with his power inside us, we can completely escape all the ugly, selfish, muddy choices in the world.
So we don't have to fight the grumpy old man with our own tiny muscles. We have God's strength.
Yes.
And the document lists extra verses of encouragement that promise this exact strength. Philippians chapter 4, verse 13 says we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. James chapter 1, verse 4 talks about patience having its perfect work so we can be complete, lacking nothing. And Jude, verse 24, promises that God is able to keep us from stumbling. They all remind us that God is strong enough to keep us from falling.
And that leads us to the grand finale of this whole document. It paints a stunning picture of the end of the story, showing what happens to people who let this superpower Changed them completely.
This is such a majestic picture. I'm going to read from Revelation chapter 7, verses 1 through 4, and Revelation chapter 14, verses 1 through 5.
I love this part.
It describes a group of people at the very end of time. It says in chapter 14, "Then I looked, and behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written on their foreheads.
Okay.
These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes, and in their mouth was found no deceit, for they are without fault before the throne of God."
Let's paint the picture of this group, the 144,000. It says they have God's name written on their foreheads.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean they walked around with a pen and literally wrote letters on their skin.
Huh. Right, that would be pretty silly.
In the Bible, your forehead represents your mind, your thoughts, and who you really are on the inside. Having God's name there means his perfect character, his deep love, and total kindness is perfectly stamped inside their minds.
So they're completely transformed. The grumpy old man is totally gone. They don't even want to go near the mud anymore.
Yes. It says they follow the Lamb that is Jesus wherever he goes. They are perfectly and permanently plugged into the power source.
That's beautiful.
And the most amazing part, it says in their mouths, there are no lies, no tricky words, and no bad language. They are totally clean. This group of people proves something wonderful to the whole universe. With Jesus living completely inside you, giving you his power, a perfectly beautiful, clean life is absolutely possible.
That is incredible. What a journey we have been on in this deep dive. We started with something so relieving, getting a free, clean heart. Jesus takes off that heady backpack of muddy rocks, which we called righteousness by faith.
And then we learned the secret to keeping that backpack clean. We have to abide. We have to stay plugged into the vine, just like a tablet staying plugged into a charger.
Yep.
Every single day, we make the active choice to stay connected to his love by doing the good things he asks.
We looked honestly at the tug-of-war inside us, the frustrating feeling of being tied to a grumpy old selfish nature. But we discovered how the Spirit of God acts like a superhero to defeat that bad nature, taking the old man out of the car so we can drive safely in the sunshine.
We also learned the clear difference between feeling the pull of temptation, like looking at something you want in a store, and actually making the bad choice, which is sin. We learned that we are still perfectly clean even when we feel tempted.
And most beautifully, we saw that even if we make a mistake, we have an amazing older brother, an advocate to stand up for us. And God doesn't just leave us to fight alone. He gives us his own divine nature so we can live completely beautiful, clean lives, just like those people with his name in their minds. It is a story of total hope from beginning to end.
It really is. And as we finish our deep dives today, I want to leave you with one last thing to ponder.
Okay, what is it?
We talked so much today about how staying plugged into the power source is the only way to keep your heart clean and to quiet that tug-of-war inside you. So think about your own daily routine for a moment. What is one plug or connection to God that you haven't plugged in yet? Maybe it is taking 5 minutes in the morning to read his words, or choosing to show kindness to someone who is hard to love. What is that one connection, and what would happen in your life if you finally plugged it in today?
What a fantastic question to carry with us. Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive. It has been an absolute joy to explore these wonderful truths with you. Keep asking questions. Keep looking for those simple pictures that make big ideas clear. And most importantly, keep your tablet plugged in. We will catch you next time.